I'm on a mission to boost my trophy completion from the low 50s all the way to 75%. And Fallout's sorta back in the limelight, isn't it? Maybe it's got something to do with the TV show that released in early April to fairly good reviews. I'd love to watch it, but it's on a 7th streaming service I don't have. Damn you, corporate greed! Everyone's playing it, streaming it, doing survival runs, making videos on how to get the platinum, which I'm not trying to do. That's right, this is purely coincidental. Also subscribe. I started Fallout 4 back when it came out in November 2015, and after finishing half of it, I took a year break and came back to polish it off in early 2017. During this time, I earned 44 of the 51 total trophies, 20 of which were tied to story quests. I was going for the platinum back in 2017, so I even had some of the more difficult trophies, like reaching level 50, collecting all 20 bobbleheads, and Benevolent Leader, which is the rarest trophy besides the platinum. This is for reaching maximum happiness in a large settlement, and it's almost impossible to obtain naturally. I think to get it, you have to place a bunch of medical clinics, beds for settlers have to be specifically undercover, you need to have a certain amount of defenses set up. Yeah, it's sort of a whole thing. I really enjoyed the base building side of things, and what got me back into the game after my hiatus was the Vault-Tec Workshop DLC. I earned all 3 trophies from this DLC, plus one from the Contraptions Workshop I had also purchased because I specifically wanted an elevator that was part of it, and as you can see, I did a lot with that. On the topic of DLCs, Fallout 4 has 6 of them. These can be broken down into 2 categories, story-based and miscellaneous. The first hurdle I faced was actually installing them, as PlayStation said I couldn't download them because I had already purchased them. Good job, Sony. I chalked this down to the PS5 automatically trying to download the newly released PS5 version over the PS4 version, but even after going to the PS4 version in the store, I couldn't get it to work. After a bit of clicking around, I found I could download them from the Manage Game Content menu, and now we can finally get back into the game. Meet Troy. He's a handsome fella, isn't he? Look at the subtle red of his bloodshot eyes, complemented perfectly by his box cutter-like chin. I loaded up in the very vault I had made with the Vault-Tec DLC, and I couldn't help but slowly pan around to admire the beauty of its architecture. Except for that bit, and I guess that bit too. Wow, I left a lot of holes everywhere, didn't I? Oh god, I've been away for so long, all my crops have wilted and died. The trophies I needed for the base game were for finishing the Brotherhood of Steel questline and various miscellaneous ones, like crafting 50 weapon mods, 100 items, and completing 50 miscellaneous objectives. I hoped that I'd boost all of these numbers going through the DLC, and with that being said, the first trophy I earned in 7 years was for assigning a settler to a pillory because I'm sadistic. And then began trying to work out how to build a production pipeline to produce 100 items from builders. This stuff is not intuitive at all. I had to Google every single step, and I'm sure that if I'd done this years ago, I would have thought to connect the builder to a terminal so I could select what it makes, but with the gap I've had, I can barely remember the controls. Now that that's all hooked up, I have to work out how to get the materials it needs to make the most simple object, a steel ball, which is made from steel. However, I could not find out how to get steel, and after a bit more googling, I found out that you can scrap items into their individual components in the base building menu. So I went to my workbench, got out everything that contained steel, dumped it on the ground, and scrapped all of it, only to find out that when I got back to the machine, I had scrapped it all and stored it in the resources for the base building at the other location. After a bit more googling, I found out that crafting benches will break down items automatically to use the materials for the thing that you're currently crafting. So I loaded an old autosave, got out all of the items from the workbench, put them into the builder, and finally, now I only need 99 more of these, and the machine is very slow, and I wasn't sure if it would work if I went and did something else, so I sat there and watched it. And honestly, I'd rather watch paint dry. So I did. With the mass production trophy in the bag, I had 2 of the DLCs complete to 100%, and I chose to move on to the Nuka World questline. This was the last DLC to be released, and although I was level 50, I felt underleveled the whole time. Nuka World is a smaller separate map off to the side of the Commonwealth. It has 10 trophies, 4 story and 6 miscellaneous. The first story trophy mission was completely linear, and I had a lot of fun here. Afterwards, it opens up and you have to go and clear out large areas and assign them to gangs. Once this is complete, I unlocked the related trophy trophy, the Grand Tour. This DLC gets really tedious when starting the Home Sweet Home quest. You need to talk to this character named Shank, and he sends you to set up 3 raider outposts in the Commonwealth. To start a mission, you talk to Shank, fast travel to the Commonwealth, load, spawn back at the entrance to Nuka World, then fast travel again to get to wherever you need to go, load, politely ask the citizens to leave or else, fast travel back to Nuka World, load, talk to Shank and then go again. The load times are what really kills it for me, and it's not until you complete the quest you can actually send Shank to the Commonwealth, which makes setting up the 8 raider camps for hostile takeover a little bit better. When going for this trophy, I would recommend choosing to raid camps over talking the settlers into leaving. This gives you a bunch more options for camps to take over, and clearing out raiders is much more fun. Power Play is the last story quest, and it's a very standard, run-of-the-mill, go to place and shoot everyone mission. Now onto the miscellaneous trophies, and the one I was most worried about was all sugared up. To get this, you need to kill 40 Nuka World specific creatures while under the effects of any Nuka mix flavor you've brewed up. To unlock a recipe, you have to collect a Nuka recipe book. There are 20 of them scattered throughout the world, and what worried me was that I'd cleared out most areas and now creatures wouldn't spawn as frequently. So I loaded up a guide, found all the recipes, and crafted as many as I could. I hit a snag when crafting 2 of them. Each recipe needs specific ingredients. A lot of them require Nuka orange, and I'd already gone through my supply and cleaned out all of the shops. But I got lucky and found the last one I needed in a random bin. The other recipe required rum. Turns out rum is one of the rarest spawns in the whole game.
Why is the rum always gone?
Well, after a quick Goog, I learned that it can be in one of several locations, so I fast travelled back to the Commonwealth, loaded, and then went through the National Guard house. Found me rum.
I found it.
Made my last Nuka mix, went back to Nuka World, and while using a guide to find all the scav mag issues, killed every living creature I came across. Raiding for a living requires you to complete 12 quests for raider gangs. This would be fine if all the quests were in the Nuka World map, but no, they're all in the Commonwealth. So to start a quest, you go and talk to a gang leader, and each one lives in their own little camp. So you load into their camp, accept a quest, find out you can't fast travel from this area, leave, load, fast travel again, load, enter the area the objective is in, load, complete the quest, fast travel, load, go to the camp to turn it in, load, and then get another quest. Due to my choices in the story, I only had 2 factions that I could accept quests from, so I could cut down on some of the loading by accepting a quest from each one before going to the Commonwealth. But the loading times, even playing the PS4 version on a PS5, was so long and I got so bored I would just skip through all of the quest dialogue and then not have a single idea what I was doing.
Well, hello there, weary traveller. I need you to undertake a quest, if you will. A task that has haunted me, rusted old tractor, no other man's sewage, like you wouldn't ever believe you would be the first. Well, that is terrific to hear. You'll need these.
Oh, what did I just agree to? The last thing to do in this DLC was to redeem Nuka-cade tickets in the arcade. Throughout the DLC, I'd been collecting large rolls of tickets, and when I redeemed them, I had over 5,000, which made me very happy because I thought the eyes on the prize trophy was for redeeming 10,000. Turns out it was for redeeming 100,000, and the ticket payouts from playing the games in the arcade are usually between 1 and 200. And who at Bethesda thought that this was a good idea? Thank God that I found this exploit online. You can go into a settlement and build the Nuka-cade hoop shot machine, and if you place one of these on a carpet, you can move the carpet and ignore the clipping of the machine itself, allowing you to make this. The person in the guide would grab a ball, jump up and down so the ball repeatedly went through the hoops and earned points each time, but I had trouble with that, so I stole a bunch of balls and loaded them into a junk jet. This got me a good amount of tickets, but jumping up and down would produce a better yield, and once I perfected that, I was earning roughly 1,000 tickets a minute. After a few hours mindlessly jumping up and down, I could go back to Nuka World, load, enter the arcade, load, and then redeem my tickets. Overall, this DLC was okay. It took me around 15 hours to 100%, and on the surface it seemed like great value for money, but looking back and realizing it's go here, clean out area, and then just loading and jumping takes away from the experience just a little bit. Also, Preston really hated me after learning about all the things I did as part of the Raider quests. So, The Automatron DLC has 5 trophies. 3 of them are for completing the story, and 2 of them are miscellaneous. It took me around 2.5 hours to finish, and I had a lot of fun. It introduced a new robot companion that you can customize using a robot upgrade station that you can build in any of your settlements. You unlock mods by picking them up from other robots you've killed throughout the story, making the Robot Hunter trophy surprisingly easy. And the Most Toys trophy for crafting the robot parts just as simple. I'd played the entire game with Piper as my companion, but once I found out I could customize my new robot friend to have a larger inventory backpack, an ice gun for one hand and a laser rifle for the other, I sent her packing. This DLC is my favourite one. It's short, fun, my new companion is fantastic, and it's all set in the base game world. Far Harbour sees you don the detective hat.
I actually don't think I have one in my inventory.
And travel to a town outside the Commonwealth to track down a missing teenager. It has 10 trophies, 5 of which are story and 5 miscellaneous. The story basically boils down to a group of synths doing stuff that the missing girl is a part of, and you have to help the cause to convince her to go back to her parents. The big thing to note about the story trophies in this DLC is that one of them is missable. At a point during the story, I was given a mission to collect 3 different items that would start 3 different quests, and I happened upon the location that progressed the story without having to collect the other 2. I cannot remember how I found out this was missable, but it's very lucky that I did at the exact point I was at, because I could load a save from 10 minutes ago and enter the location that started the quest, cleansing the land. It's important that you do not do this mission, otherwise you will not be able to get the rest of the story trophies, but as long as you have discovered the mission, you will still get the trophy for completing it when progressing the other storyline. I used a guide to find all 5 almanac issues, and while doing this I also discovered 20 locations and cooked a new Far Harbour recipe. As far as I'm aware, recipes are automatically unlocked when you pick up any cooking item. I roasted some angler, and the trophy popped right after. For Push Back the Fog, you need to unlock 3 workshops. I found one earlier, but I couldn't use it, and after asking Jeeves, it turns out that the workshops are unlocked after completing various side quests. The trophy that took me the longest was Hooked. This requires you to kill 30 Far Harbour sea creatures, but not all of the sea creatures are specific to Far Harbour. I kept finding Mirelurks and bandits, and that didn't help at all. Creatures that do count are anglers, fog crawlers, gulpers, and hermit crabs? I don't even know if I saw one of those. I was roaming around the coastline for nearly an hour before killing my last one, and that was already on top of the 4.5 hours I'd spent in the DLC. This is my least favourite DLC. The atmosphere is murky and dull, and not in a way that I think is interesting. On top of that, there's a puzzle section that highlights the worst of the base building mechanics, plus the missable trophy making it tougher for completionists like myself if you choose to go into this blind. Wasteland Workshop is the last DLC in my list, and it only has 3 trophies. They are for having 5 tamed creatures in a settlement, starting an arena fight, and building one of every cage type. To build all the cage types and the calming beacon that keeps the creatures docile in your settlement, you'll need level 1 in both the Wasteland Whisperer and the Animal Friend perks. There are 16 cage types in total. Each one requires a specific bait and generic materials. The bait at times was the most difficult to find, especially for the larger creatures. Mirelurks will only wander into the cage if you lure them in there using their children. Super mutant cages need Brahmin meat, and Yalguai cages need Radstag meat. Luckily for me, I can make a Radstag cage, then use the meat from them to build the Yalguai cage. I wanted to do the same thing with the Brahmin, but for their cage I needed razor grain. I searched far and wide to no prevail. It wasn't until I stopped past my vault to check the storage chest there that I remembered, oh, my dead crops. Oh, it's not dead, that's just how razor grain looks. Now that I had sufficient bait, I could put my plan into action. This started a very long cycle of resetting the cages, which does require more of the bait type than sleeping for 24-hour periods, gathering bait, wash, rinse, repeat. With all the cages crafted, it was time to try and get 5 tamed creatures in a settlement. It's important to note that for this, the creatures need to be hostile initially, so trying to have 5 Brahmin in a settlement doesn't work. Even with the calming beacon, certain creatures will still be hostile towards each other. My workaround for this was to release them all at the same time and hope the trophy would pop before they aggroed on each other. This worked great, and I left just as the bloodbath was about to start. The Instigator trophy took a bit of work. After placing the dueling pads on the ground, I started a fight. 1 combatant won and no trophy popped. This video I found on Bing suggested I needed a bell that, when rung, would stop the arena fight, and I should do this before anyone dies. This didn't work either, but one of the comments said just delete the platform, and this got me the trophy, so thank you very much to this person. Completing the DLCs took me around 25 hours, give or take. Regardless of what I think of them, when I paid $60 for the remaining DLCs I didn't own, I felt a bit ripped off, but there's definitely great value for money here.
The other thing that I learned is that nothing is useless. Things that I initially just threw away to save on inventory space, like dirty water, pre-war money, Mirelurk eggs, although some of these things can be used for cooking,
I didn't do a whole lot of that, but I think that if you're going for this, you need to take the time to go back to your settlement and dump them all in a box somewhere, because everything has a purpose. But now with all the DLCs 100%, it's time to flick back over to the main game. One of the trophies I had left in the base game list was for completing 50 miscellaneous objectives. The best way to grind this back when I first played the game was to throw a signal flare to summon a Brotherhood of Steel helicopter. This would add a miscellaneous quest to your inventory, and then when you get onto the chopper, the objective would complete. I really didn't want to do this, and it's one of the biggest reasons I put the game down in the first place. My hope of playing all the DLCs first was that I would both get and complete a bunch of miscellaneous objectives naturally, and this worked a treat. I got the trophy midway through playing Far Harbour. There were so many new miscellaneous quests, and a lot of them were as simple as, hey, go pick up that stash from your gang outpost. And not long after, I was able to create 50 weapon mods and craft 100 items with all of the vast resources I had collected. So if you didn't already know, Fallout 4 has a split quest line when you get to a certain point in the story. I joined the Institute on my first playthrough, so the trophies I had left were for finishing the Brotherhood of Steel questline. When you choose one path, you're automatically locked out of the other. I knew I'd made a backup save before choosing a side. The problem was I'd written it down in a Word document on my Toshiba, and it doesn't work anymore, so I kissed it Toshi bye.
What an odd-sized explosion.
With a bit of trial and error, I found the save I needed and immediately did the Blind Betrayal quest. Piper also didn't like any of the choices I was making for this questline, so, this questline is very short and didn't take as long as I thought it would. I followed Liberty Prime, and at the end I unlocked Ad Victorium, and then the nuclear option for getting the best possible ending. This was a blast, literally. I tend to go on this love-hate roller coaster with a lot of games that I play, and Fallout 4 was definitely one of those way back when, but after having such a long break, it was quite refreshing to go back to. Or maybe I've just finally grown a little bit more susceptible to the grindier part of trophy hunting. Fallout 3 is also something I'd really love to platinum, but there's a couple of really pesky trophies in that. The ones that have put me off the most are reaching certain levels with good, neutral, and evil karma. I'm sure that there's a really easy way around that, but it's something that's off-putting enough that I haven't even bothered to look into it. But Fallout New Vegas doesn't have anything like that, so I don't know, maybe let me know in the comments. Do I recommend revisiting Fallout 4? Absolutely, 100%. If you will. Everyone's already beaten me to it anyway, so. Something I haven't done before, but feel is very appropriate, is to link the guides I used and think I used all those years ago down in the description for this video. And if you're going for this 100%, hopefully they can help you in areas that I haven't. Thank you so very much for taking some time out of your day to watch this video, and I will see you later. Bye.